name is self-defense. I just wanna tell you. Cola Boy says. Cola Boy says. All around the world. All the boys and girls. Yo, it's Cola Boy, aka the kid born in space, aka the disabled disco innovator, aka so pop it, lock it, drop it, the instant classic generator. This is what I say. Cola Boy says. Cola Boy says. All around the world. All the boys and girls. Cause we gotta stay together, that's what's right. With supremacy and empire, left and right. But we gonna march on that big power structure so we can liberate from all sides. Cola Boy says. Cola Boy says. All around the world. All the boys and girls. You can do it. We can do it. We gonna march. Take back what's ours. This oppression, it has gone too far. If I tell you that you have the power, the people are ready. Let's take down these cowards.
Spoop.
Ooh, that
Hello.
song put me in a better mood.
Yeah, it's a serious note tonight. A lot of insane shit has been happening in recently. Shit's really fucking popped off.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna be very clear about who's doing the popping off.
And as if any of you were keeping up with Twitter, you saw our tweets. We weren't able to put our original title because some amount of algorithm was censoring it's the combination of our title with Israel and Palestine in the same sentence or something, and we weren't able to use the original title. So
Can you read them the original title? Because I think
yeah,
two things
our
specifically stick out other than
our
Free
original title
Palestine.
was Israeli apartheid must end. #Free Palestine. Very clear, concise. Nothing can be misconstrued about that statement. And they wouldn't let us go live because of something about our title. Maybe it's Israeli apartheid. Maybe it's having Israeli and Palestine in the same phrase. We're not sure, but something caused an issue, and we were not able to go live until we changed our title. So we made sure to keep the Free Palestine, obviously, because the state of Israel can disappear. We don't need it.
I tried
We
googling the
even
Twitch thing
tried.
and nothing came up.
Yeah, we even tried a different like our old title, so it couldn't have been like a technical problem on our end. It was, and obviously now we're live once we changed the title. It is very funny that the part that is presumably getting us banned, which let's keep in mind, it seems like it's comprehensive. Like we used at symbols for the
Yeah,
A's
like
and
we
stuff.
like
Ones,
we
all that
tried
shit.
all the different like workarounds. We used ats instead of a's, ones instead of i's. We even used a 3 instead of an e, and they still picked up on it. We weren't able to go live until we got rid of Israeli apartheid. So
Which seems to be what got us, what got us presumably banned for that moment. So that's going to be like when I was saying, we're going to be clear about who is popping off here. The Israeli government, funded by the U.S. government, that is committing a genocide and is treating the Palestinian people as second-class citizens. Obviously, this isn't a new thing. We'll talk about some of the history behind that. I wouldn't say this is going to be a super comprehensive episode. You can even see like the number we have is 49.5 for this.
yeah, because we realized that today was episode 50, and we have something like I guess we wanted that one to be a little bit more like laid back, and we realized how important the subject is, and we didn't want to in any way tarnish what's going on right now because it's so important. So we decided to delay our episode 50, our special 50, to do not a half episode, but um, you know, obviously not episode 50. It's 49.5.
Right. And maybe and just to like re-clarify that, like all of our stuff's gonna pretty much do with, Israel apartheid and what's going on right now. And just to set like the background though, and why this is important, because we've talked about police repression and imperialism and military oppression in the United States and across the world, whether it be fucking Uganda. We've talked about oppression in the states with police in different states, Brazil, um, Bolivia, and now recently with Colombia as well, and their state oppression, which is also funded by the United States government.
We talked about Nigeria.
Yeah, Nigeria, the security forces stuff. And all you can see, all these are kind of all little microcosms of the same problem, which is we fund, for whether it be for resource control or for, area geopolitical domination control for the United States. We fund dictators and military regimes, and we murder civilians indiscriminately, like is happening right now in Gaza. But this one's so important. I don't want to say over the other ones, but the reason why we're making it like an emergency episode, and I think it's clear, like the whole world is kind of watching right now, which is different than like Gaza specifically, and the Palestinian people are historically some of the most oppressed people, and also their struggle is so important because they've provided true international solidarity and advice around the world. They were the ones that, when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, they were offering advice on how to clean tear gas out of your eyes. That was coming from people in Palestine. When the Black Panther Party in the United States was, organizing on behalf of ending apartheid in South Africa, both South Africa and the Black Panther Party here was like, hey, we can't have that until we also have apartheid ended.
Yeah, Nelson Mandela famously said, "South African apartheid doesn't end until the Palestinian or the Israeli apartheid ends."
Right.
So, and
And
yeah, it's true. Until we're all free, nobody's free.
exactly. And all these things are, like we always say, interconnected, whether it be Colombia, Nigeria, etc. And yeah, I mean, it's just especially despicable. I think now they're saying it's 69 Palestinians have been killed. And I'm sure that's not only a conservative estimate, but the bombing's not done yet. It's something like 8 or 9 a.m. in Gaza right now. And as we're going to get into, the Israeli government doesn't seem like they're going to ratchet down, peace talks or anything. It seems like if there's going to be more escalation before there's a halt to the violence.
And not that there was ever really a halt. Like before it really started popping off these last couple days, there's been consistent bombings, and we've talked about some of them here on the show. We talked about the uptick in bombings after the UAE did a negotiation deal with Israel, and
Yep.
directly after signing that deal, there was like a specific bombing that took civilian lives, but there's been an uptick since then. Like this isn't anything new, but it's just gotten to such a point now where a lot of people can't turn their eyes from it.
Yeah, and this is like the praxis angle of it, right? Like we need to organize and create international solidarity to do something because yeah, like you're saying, this isn't new. And like I said, like, in 2014 there was the bombings there that killed some 500 children, and that, most people don't know about. It was batted past. And of course there's been massacres since 1948 and even before that, and establishing the state of Israel. But now it's just, I think it's being received different. Like maybe the number necessarily isn't I mean, as we're going to get into, like the things they're doing is disgusting. They're bombing media buildings, residential buildings, every war crime imaginable. But the real difference this time is I think people are really attentive, actually. And that's good. We need to do something with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't. This is the moment. We can't let it fizzle out.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I think, why we dedicated this episode really to the situation.
Yeah, so let's just get into it so we can get through all of our stuff and then set the context for the rest of the conversation. Carlos, you actually have the first thing, right?
Yeah, Carlos does have the opener.
Set up some background again.
Yeah, so this won't take too long. This is a little precursor. About a month ago, the roughly more than 300 members of Congress co-signed this letter essentially lobbying on behalf of Israel for their 2022 funding. And pretty much the whole thing is just a giant, I'd almost call it a suck-off to Israel. They're literally saying how essential Israel is to our influence in the Middle East and global security. Just pretty much every say a phrase you've heard the U.S. government use to support Israel. It's nothing new, really. But I'd say overall, what shocked me the most about this is just how many members of Congress signed on to it. Quite a very, very long list here. In fact, so long that the list of people who co-signed it is longer than the actual letter itself, arguing for more military aid to go to Israel.
Because they need it.
And so here it says, the expected fiscal year 2022 budget request of $3.8 billion in security assistance for Israel, $3.3 billion in foreign military financing, and $500 million for cooperative missile defense programs. So this is a no small size amount of money, saying this is just 1 year.
A fuck ton of money.
It is the fourth year of a 10-year agreement that went into effect in 2016.
And keep in mind the overwhelming amount of bipartisan support that these bills have. Anything that has to do with Israel, both parties fall right in line.
The names in there, Carlos?
Well, a notable name is here from California, Ted Lieu. I always see his fucking tweets on Twitter.
Anti-Trumper, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And get a little more local. Our representative, Julia Brownlee.
Yep.
Has signed on to it. Here, let me see. I'll show her name in here for our local viewers. Here she is.
It's the end of the first one.
The left column.
Wow.
Fourth from the bottom.
Jones.
Yeah, Mondaire Jones. We just got him elected.
Disgusting.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz helped rig the 2016 primary against Bernie.
See what else here? Jim
Before we
Costa.
before we like set this up and why this is important, like just seeing Bondare Jones's name there just blackpilled me so hard.
Yeah,
Not
it's just
blackpilled me, but it shows you that the institution is fucking. It doesn't matter who we. The electoralism doesn't matter when they're all, you know, complicit to supporting the military machine.
yeah, absolutely, and yeah, like all the progressive like language you can use all of it you want here for domestic policy, but if your foreign policy is still just in line with the establishment, you're no good. If you're still gonna
Adam
if
Schiff, Eric Swalwell. Sorry.
what's voting yes on our healthcare if you're gonna vote to drop more bombs on the Palestinians?
Exactly.
It doesn't end with our country being okay. All countries have to be good.
If you go to the last column here on the right, you might notice a few new names: Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz.
Oh, Dan Crenshaw is there. Oh yeah, Matt Gaetz,
Connor.
pedophile.
And unfortunately, Ro Khanna as well.
Yeah.
Bro, yep.
It's another progressive that in the past, well, yeah, he's called for to use the Vietnam War Powers Act to stop the genocide in Yemen. So seeing this is just
Wait, Higgins is on here.
yeah. Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, bunch of resistance Democrats.
Let me go back in here for a moment and read one more bit.
Yeah, some of these statements are just, like you said, it's
Where
just
was
jerking
it?
off Israel.
Iran is mentioned 3 times in here. And then it's a very short document, so it's almost admitting just, yes, Iran is our geopolitical enemy, no doubt. We want to get rid of them, and Israel is a primary tool to use in the fight against Iran. So here's the third from last paragraph, technically, or second. We recognize that not every member of Congress will agree with every policy decision of every Israeli government. However, as President Biden has stated, quote, I'm not going to place conditions for the security assistance given the serious threats that Israel is facing. And this would be, I think, irresponsible. So there you have it. Even Joe Biden, just no condition. Placing conditions on our military aid is what would be irresponsible. It's almost like a direct admission that if we did place some kind of conditions on this military aid, that it's obvious that Israel would not pass those conditions and they would not be given the aid. So that explains why they have to give it unconditionally. Because if you looked at what Israel was actually doing with this money, it's war crimes.
And we'll get into something later about how the United States refuses to really even talk about it because they're just so fucking scared of talking about this situation because of the negative backlash they'll get for just even just the slightest amount of talking bad on Israel is just so pearl clutching in the American establishment.
Yeah. If they talk about it, other than the just general silence we've seen from mainstream media, when they're not equating, saying that the majority of the violence is coming from Palestinians, which is not just grossly untrue, it's just outright lies.
Yeah, here I think that's just pretty much like possibly the worst statement in here, of them almost admitting that you might not agree with possibly the way you interpret this, you might not agree with any policy decision of the Israeli government, but it'd be irresponsible to not give them unconditional aid.
I mean, I guess the reason we put this first is like as we see the bombings over the next, who knows? Because as we're gonna get into, Biden has not called for calm. There's been no, I mean, other than like, you know, people that have been consistent on this issue, like Jeremy Corbyn, there hasn't, from the established powers, the people that are running the shit right now, it's just been, hey, Netanyahu, continue this fucking genocide. And yeah, as you see all these bombings over the next who knows how when, keep this in mind. It's our tax dollars. They look right here, and they're giving them weapons unconditionally. Billions.
And we've been doing this for decades.
Yeah. Yeah, just in this specific way, decades, and as we'll talk about later, like, the whole settler colonial angle to it as well. That's been going on for quite a while. So do you want to get into like, and we're gonna warn you, like, obviously there's gonna be videos of like bombs going off. We don't have a whole lot of like super graphic content because there has been, I've literally seen a video that was on Israeli state television, and it's of a mob dragging a Palestinian man out of his car and beating him to death. And we know now that due to the bombings from the Israeli Defense Forces, they've killed a pregnant woman, they've killed some 16 children, and as I said, they killed, as far as we know, like some 70 people, 69, and they said injured 300. But when you're bombing indiscriminately into neighborhoods, like,
You can't do an accurate reporting.
yeah, I mean,
That's like trying to get a number on the amount of innocent civilians that the United States have killed in the Middle East
right.
with all of our
It's not even
indiscriminate bombing.
including like psychological damage from just daily and nightly bombing right now. So this first video though, and the kind of thing that precipitated this, obviously, is it's the holy month of Ramadan. It's, as the month comes towards a close, like, there is more significant dates, and Eid, comes about, and people go to Al-Aqsa Mosque, like one of the most holiest sites in Islam, to pray.
Like the second or third holiest
Yeah,
mosque in
and all
history.
these, yeah, all in the same, that same area where you got the wall and you got the golden dome, Temple of the Mount and stuff. And we can play this video. What happened is, obviously, like we said, it's been a long escalation, but during Ramadan, there's been a lot of oppression by Israeli forces. But, the other day, what really kicked this off was they basically ran an assault on Alaska, on people doing peaceful prayer. As far as I know, they even killed at least one person inside the mosque itself, which is like, I mean, God forbid. It's like one of the most unholy things you could do, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like some like Dylan Roof shit. Like it's some synagogue
They
shooter.
sponsored Dylan Roof.
Yeah, it's like the worst of the worst.
So let's play this. Yeah.
It's like mowing down Christians inside of a church, you know?
Yeah, but this time we fund all the weapons that do it and stuff,
Yeah.
and the people. So yeah, this first video it's women that are inside the mosque, and they're being fired out with tear gas.
And I mean, yeah, it's ruthless. It's like it's hard to watch. It's like they're just praying.
The
And
worst
then,
part is too, like I know I saw other people point this out, like the hypocrisy of when the Notre Dame Cathedral or whatever burnt down, and they sent all these billions of dollars to repair it. But then, like, this is one of the most oldest world historical sites on the planet, and they're breaking like stained glass windows from like
Oh, dude, yeah, just irreplaceable pieces of like human history, and they're
Yep.
just destroying it. And yeah, everybody's freaking or nobody's freaking out, but like a small percentage of Notre Dame gets burned down, and everybody loses their mind. Billions and billions of dollars are fucking poured in from investors all over the world.
that's an issue elites care about, and they don't have to, they don't openly. They, of course, the elite issues they openly support the genocide of the Palestinian people.
And it's also, yeah, you don't have to pick a side when, because France is an imperial or was an imperial power at one point. Like you don't have to pick a side on anything that has to do with Notre Dame. With something like this, you have to openly support Palestine over Israel, and you're not gonna do that. If you're a rich dude, you're not fucking doing that at all.
Yeah. And just for more videos, this is outside the Aqsa Mosque on that same day where they were. This is May 9th. I think a week or two from now, or who knows when, we'll get to really look back and see exactly how this all escalated. But outside the mosque here, we just play this video. They're just indiscriminately doing the same thing, firing rubber bullets, tear gas, stun grenades. So yeah, if we can play that one. Yeah, so
Is
with all this, now Israel's kind of now after the escalations at Al-Aqsa Mosque, they're like, hey, it's time to level Gaza again, basically. So we can move on to the the next stuff here. And this is just one of the residential buildings they bombed. And another piece we don't have up, but they've also bombed a telecommunications building that was like the main building in Gaza for even mainstream media outlets to be hosted and convene in. And yeah, let's just play this video. I mean, this is among other buildings they've blown up in the last couple of days. Some 160 plus families live there. It's like a 13-story building.
you can't justify that. Nobody can
No.
justify that. There's scream Hamas, Hamas, Hamas all you want. There's no justification for that. You'll never in a million years be able to ever say that that is okay in any context.
And when people say that, like, it's just unconscionable. Like, Gaza itself, like when people say it's an open air prison, like it literally is that. Like people cannot leave. They're on a caloric, diet where it's only the specific amount of food is basically allowed in through aid, so that they can maintain, enough calories so they don't die. They're, ration food, they're ration supplies, construction materials since like the 60s haven't been allowed in there to rebuild their homes as part of this, settlement project. So when you see shit like this, like, in some most war zones, people rebuild, but in an open air prison, when your place is bombed, that's it. It's gone.
Yeah, there's there's literally nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and like in a place that has 70-80% unemployment, now your new job is picking through the scraps of your home that was just bombed. That's the reality of Gaza.
And that's what so many people miss. Like, there's that I believe it's a Michael Brooks clip, and he's asked a question, and then he asked them if they've ever been to Gaza, and they say yes, and he's like, "But you haven't been to Gaza. Like, you can go to Gaza, but you haven't been to Gaza. You haven't been to the real. You've been to the part that's already controlled by the Israeli government. You're not a real Gaza. You're not seeing people's lives just taken from right under them with nothing to stand on, nothing at all. And that's the reality that people are facing in Palestine every day. Watching their entire country shrink to like not like barely a fraction of what it once was.
Yeah, I mean Gaza is something like a 20-mile radius strip or something, and there's something like 2 million people that live there. It's like insanely densely populated.
Yeah, it's
And yeah, I mean, if we can, let's pull up the next video, because the other angle of this, and of course there is the arbiter of this is the Israeli Defense Forces that we fund, and they're bombing the shit out of civilians. But the culture and the politics in Israel, especially, which is also due to our money and you know larger geopolitical history here, but Israel is effectively, ruled by the far right now, and even at the beginning of the settler colonial movement, like the left, or the labor Zionists, their still basic position was that this is a settler state. This is Israel now. So and to think if shit, I mean, not to say that there is not a committed Jewish leftist tradition, even in Israel. Like there are people that are against, you know, settler colonialism, but
so
the very establishment of Israel, um, yeah, does that.
yeah. And Jox, what's up, bro? Welcome to the stream. Thank you for the host. And yeah, it's a very important topic, so we had to touch on it. But to add on to your point, yeah, like I guess one of the biggest things to understand here is the division between this is a Jewish issue versus this is an Israeli issue. Like what's happening in Israel does not reflect the entirety of, you know, what Jews think about what's going on. There is especially here in the United States, a strong anti-Zionist, pro-BDS Jewish movement. And it's important to, when you see stuff like this, not get swept up in all the really fucked up like anti-Semitic bullshit that happens all over the internet because of shit like this.
Well, it doesn't have to. You don't have to fall into some. It's not some Jewish conspiracy or something. The fact of the matter is, post World War II, the great powers effectively shoved, the Jewish population that had just, you know, been subjected to one of the worst genocides in history, shoved them into Palestine to start another genocide and to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians and to treat them as second-class citizens. And what I was trying to get at with the culture thing is in Israel specifically, now, and it's gestated, the boiling point, and why I think this moment is different than what we've seen in the past, especially, is we're seeing basically Israeli lynch mobs going out and killing Palestinians. We're gonna play this video. They're destroying Palestinian-owned businesses, which is also not like a new practice. That's all integral to that settler colonial project as well. But now it's just completely embedded within the state. So yeah, let's just put this It's not hyperbole to compare this to Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass in Germany, which preceded the extermination of said Jews.
Nor is it hyperbole to compare what's going on in Israel to what happened. It's
Exactly. So yeah, what's going on is the multifaceted component of, they're removing people from their homes, they're destroying their businesses, trying to burn down mosques, burning mosques, killing children, bombing buildings. In every effect, it's a genocide.
and we have to be not only straight up, but we have to be consistent on what we call this. We can't get swept up in like the wishy-washy bullshit of us, the state of Israel and its allies are always going to try to smear you for your stance in supporting Palestine. You just got to not get caught up in that bullshit. This is a genocide. This is ethnic cleansing. This is the Israeli government backed by a global superpower, the United States, just mercilessly killing and wiping out an entire population. And we need to be, incredibly militant in how we resist them, no matter where you are in the world.
Especially remember that
Yeah.
list of 330 members of Congress. No matter where you are, if you're watching in the U.S., there's a good chance that it's your representative who agrees to this and agrees to supporting Israel. I remember that it definitely didn't age well to support unconstitutional aid just less than a month ago, and then to have this happen. So make sure those people know. Maybe give them a phone call or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be bullying Mondaire Jones for the next month.
Yeah, Rokana. I mean, come on. Like,
As shitty as the situation is, I'm not at all surprised by Rokan's decision on this. He's always
yeah,
been
he's always been a
super
flip-flopper.
he's always been super fucking wishy-washy on easy fucking issues.
Yep.
And he's a big fucking like Silicon Valley guy.
Yep. Well, maybe this is a good transition point then, because all these next ones are like statements basically, and we can we'll do Tlaib's first. Is like, this is kind of what a good statement looks like. But we'll and ones we don't have here, like Jeremy Corbyn was out there vehemently calling this apartheid, as he has his whole career.
I mean, even before the 70s, as you were saying yesterday, like he's been extremely consistent on this issue, and it's as you're saying again, to steal words right out of your fucking beautiful mouth. It's sadly the reason that he was, so smeared was because he refused to back down from how shitty Israel is and what's going on in Palestine.
Right, so he was smeared as an anti-Semite, which was the thing that, ended up making him lose the race and be removed as being, head of the Labor Party, basically, their guy.
And Labor's just been falling apart since.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, they're neo-lib party. They're just getting bodied. So let's pull up the. Okay, we
The
have
Tlaib, yeah.
Um, is this one a video or is this one a? Yeah. Okay, so this is a video as well, so we can play that. Yeah, so not only are our politicians, most of them are signing off on unconditional weapons and military and financial support for a genocide, but a lot of them aren't even willing to make a a decent statement against it. Even a surface level statement. It's good to see Tlaib is, but we have some other to compare.
Yeah, and I think this is damning. Like, this is just outright disgusting, and there's a part in this video that is like just beyond terrible. It's from the national news, and it's a 2.5 minute clip from Ned Price, the spokesman of the U.S. State Department. And let's watch this just in its entirety, and then we could talk about it.
Principle of self-defense. We certainly.
I'm asking if you think that the principle of self-defense applies to the retaliatory, the airstrikes that they're conducting in response.
Matt, this is a very fluid situation. I would hesitate to comment on operations beyond, the rocket fire that is clearly targeting innocent civilians in Israel. So I would hesitate to speak to specific operations that have just occurred. But the broader principle of self-defense is something we stand by on behalf of Israel and every other country.
Do you think that an Israeli military response to the rockets coming in, a military response to the rockets coming in is covered by this broader rubric of self-defense, right?
Self-defense often does authorize the use of force.
Thank you, Matt. I want to ask you about East Jerusalem, but let's talk about what you said about the principle of self-defense. Does that in any way apply to the Palestinians? Do they have a right to self-defense? Do Palestinians have a right to self-defense?
In broadly speaking, Saeed, we believe in the concept of self-defense. We believe it applies to any state. I don't think that I certainly wouldn't want my words to be construed as.
I understand. I want to ask you on Israel. I don't want to harp on this either, but the Israelis killed 13 people just now, including maybe 5 or 6 children. Do you condemn that? Do you condemn the killing of children?
Saeed,
I'm asking, do you condemn the killing of Palestinian children?
Obviously, and these reports are just emerging, and I understand, I was just speaking to the team, I understand we don't have independent confirmation of facts on the ground yet, so I'm very hesitant to get into reports that are just emerging. Obviously, the deaths of civilians, be they Israeli or Palestinians, are something we would take very seriously.
Okay.
You're going to know as soon as I read what your answer was that there's a big problem with it. You said, well, not a problem, it just doesn't answer the question. We believe that it, meaning the right to self-defense, applies to any state. Well, you see the problem, right? Yes? Do you regard Palestine as a state?
I wasn't
referring. Do you think that, you don't in the context of the ICC and the UN? So are you saying that you do not, if it applies to any state, are you saying that Palestinians don't have a right to self-defense?
I was making a broader point not attached to Israel or the Palestinians in that case.
So they do have a right to self-defense.
Matt, I'm not in a position to debate the legalities from up here. What our message is one of de-escalation.
Right.
Literally your job. Yeah, I mean that's he's our guy. That's part of he's spokesperson for the United States Department or the Department or Secretary of Defense, State Department. Sorry, he literally can't condemn the killing of innocent children. He can't. He did it right there. He just dodged the question, and he refused to call Palestine a state. That's damning. That's evidence right then and there. Our position, the United States position on the Israeli apartheid. I don't want to use the term Israel-Palestine conflict. It's not a conflict.
No, it's not a conflict. These two people are fighting.
Exactly. This is asymmetrical. Israel is backed by a global superpower. They're fully in control of the situation. They drop the most bombs. They cause the most damage, and it's ridiculous to try to call this a conflict when it's not. It's a genocide. It's apartheid. It's oppression. That's what it is. You can't run away from that. You can't run around that. And nobody's gonna let you run away from that. And that video is just disgusting.
You'd think that was Ned Price, right? He's the
yeah.
You think with his like Ivy League fucking education, he wouldn't get caught in his own rhetoric loophole, where he's like with the whole state thing, where he's like any states can have self-defense. They're allowed to have self-defense, rights to self-defense, but As we know, the U.S. State Department has done everything to destroy the state of Palestine, and you see at all the ends of these statements, and you'll even, I'm sure you'll hear in the coming days that the United States or Israel is seeking a two-state solution. They never have, and they never fucking will. The inception of Israel, the whole idea is to make the state of Israel, like, and keep in mind the two-state solution is, as far as the Palestinian people are concerned, the compromise solution. They were invaded upon, and with the two-state solution, Palestine is only like 20% of the country goes to Palestine, and Hamas, the group that's democratically elected, may I remind you, by the Palestinian people, that everyone claims is terrorists, they've agreed that the two-state they will accept the two-state solution, which is a bitch slap to the Palestinian people. They'll take that.
Because they just want this to fucking end. They just want peace. They want to be able to build their country and exist without the constant threat of being bombed every single waking moment of their lives. Not knowing if you're going to see your kids later today, not knowing if you're going to see your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother later today. Imagine the fear of that. Imagine here in the United States, if somebody was bombing us every single day and you didn't know if you're going to see any number of your family members or your friends at the end of the day. Imagine living with that constant fear every single day. It's unimaginable, and these people have had to go through it for decades upon decades upon decades, since the inception of Israel, really. And post 40s, Jesus fucking Christ, like, it just got so much worse. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Israel is indiscriminately bombing Christian Palestinians, Jewish Palestinians, Muslim Palestinians. They don't care who they're killing, and neither does the United States. They don't care because, we care. We always talk about how we care about, Christian principles and how we care about, our Christian nation when we're supporting Israel, who's indiscriminately killing Christians. Not that that matters at all, but it's just another point of the United States hypocrisy overall.
This is part of our good Christian nation, holy war.
Which is why so many members of the far right support Israel.
Support Israel, exactly.
And that's the main point of contention is the far right is the one that loves Israel because they want all the Jews to go there, kill all the Muslims, and then just stay over there. And yeah, that's the fucked part.
Yeah, absolutely. Is our next statement the one from, is it Yang or Biden's?
Yeah, this one I believe
is okay. It's Yang's.
Yeah. So Yang came out same day, like I think a couple hours after the reports came out that children were murdered by the state of Israel, and he says, "I'm standing with the people of Israel who are coming under bombardment attacks and condemn the Hamas terrorists." And listen to this part: the people of NYC, we all know who he's pandering to. The people of NYC will always stand with our brothers and sisters in Israel who face down terrorism and persevere. And this guy here, Raphael Shimunov, sorry for mispronouncing your name, he had a really interesting tweet thread here with some facts about what's happening in the Yang campaign in New York. And I'll just go ahead and read a couple of these. Some facts about Yang for the people throwing up in their mouths. Point 1, he launched his campaign with a co-chair, Richie Torres, who said Palestinian human rights advocates are mentally ill, and is funded by Israeli apartheid to pinkwash it. Point 2, Andrew Yang recently celebrated an endorsement by one of the most despised racist right-wing Jewish leaders in New York City, who was removed by the city council for claiming Palestinians don't exist. Point 3, Andrew Yang was also celebrated an endorsement by another far-right Jewish leader who was handpicked by Dov Hakind, an open supporter of the Khanist terrorists who, for lack of better terms, are Israeli Nazis. That's like a comparison you can make. Who are taking Palestinian homes and cheering mosque attacks. His wife fundraises for ethnic cleansing. Fact number 4. In fact, Andrew Yang also brought on aid to the Khanist, who is infamous in NYC for wearing blackface to parties and defending it, just in line with U.S. allies, and whose wife whose wife sold shirts with the Aqsa Mosque being destroyed to fundraise ethnic cleansing groups, which is despicable. It's like Jesus Christ. Point 5. Andrew Yang's campaign co-chair is one of the top donor recipients of apartheid money from the far right, or from the right. There's also a letter about him from mothers of those killed by NYPD about how he betrayed each of them to favor cop killers. Point 6. One of Andrew Yang's biggest funders here in Queens, where his spouse is from, is the same funder that is infamous funder to that infamous elected official who called AOC a B. And then point 7, Andrew Yang was selected to run by the Tusk family, infamous right-wingers who are invested in the demise and suffering of working people to favor the war machines and billionaires, to raise rents, break unions, kill good jobs and lower wages, and healthcare coverage. And then, of course, the final point is this tweet got so much support from right-wingers like Ted Cruz, Stephen Miller, Liz Cheney. And yeah, it's fucked. And that just speaks numbers into how shitty Andrew Yang has always been, and how terrible he continues to be because he's just posturing for the spot. He wants to lock in the key New York demographics of conservative Jews, really. And the
I
easiest
mean,
way to
that's what
lock in
he's
those.
doing, right? He's just straight up pandering to.
Oh yeah, that's all this is. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And I believe it in my heart. I believe that he absolutely does. He supports Israel. I don't think he's at all in support of the Palestinians, but regardless of how he actually feels about the situation, what he's doing is saying, I like the apartheid, I like the genocide, vote for me, because Israel's cool and I'll give them more money. And that's what it is.
And this is like you're saying, this tweet was just a couple of days ago, pretty much still right now at the height of Israel just indiscriminately killing civilians. So now the next one is we can pull that one up, is the Biden statement. And let's see what the new FDR has to say about Israel.
Thoughts on Israel?
Are you concerned about the violence in the Middle East, and can you talk about what conversations you have had with officials there?
My national security staff and defense staff has been in constant contact with their counterparts in the Middle East, not just with the Israelis, but also with everyone from the Egyptians to the Saudis to the Emiratis, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu not too long ago. I'll be putting out a statement very shortly on that. My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later. But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory. But I had a conversation for a while with the Prime Minister of Israel, and I think that my hope is that we'll see this coming to conclusion sooner than later. Thank you.
God, he's so fucking boring. That was a fucking minute clip. Sorry for the left ear audio.
Yeah.
But anyway.
If anything, it makes the clip more cursed. So.
Yeah. Disgusting, and also like just a point. He said thousands of rockets. Say Hamas launched 1,000 rockets at Israel. Only 100 of them would make it inside statistically, because the Iron Dome that the United States funded to create has a 90% effective rate. Over 90% of anything you throw at the state of Israel will get destroyed by their anti-missile defense system. So this illusion that thousands and thousands of missiles are constantly hitting Israel is a fucking farce. And it's bullshit, and it's just propaganda to continue support for Israel.
Yeah, and even in just the recent history of the genocide right now, like, it's just historically inaccurate. Like, we know that the missiles are not the first thing that preceded the bombings of women and children. Like, what happened is, as we just said, not only just the previous aggressions on Gaza and the Palestinian people, but now they've During Ramadan, they've assaulted Aqsa Mosque and carried out fucking lynchings, basically, and destroying businesses. And yeah, like you're saying, even in their small retaliation of shooting missiles back, um, most of them are intercepted. And anyone that has criticizes, Hamas or them firing rockets has no right to say, like we're saying, these people are literally being fucking exterminated. They have all the right to, I'll fucking say it right now. Like, I hope they fucking take out some major military depots in Israel. I hope Hamas does.
I mean, listen, like this is at the end of this is self-defense. They
Yeah,
have
they're
been
fighting,
they have been
and we can't
consistently
judge them.
for over half a century. They've been constantly attacked by the state of Israel. They have every single right in the world. If you justify all the military intervention you want, if you justify any small percentage of anything that the United States has ever done, you have to justify the Palestinians clapping back at Israel for what they're doing.
Yeah,
And if you can't, you're not making proper mental connections and you have actual brain rot. That's it. Point made. Like you have no brain. You're an idiot. If you don't think that anything that the Palestinians are doing is justifiable, you're an idiot. End of story.
you can't judge how someone resists. Like, you don't know what it's like to literally be exterminated.
This is literally fight or flight.
Exactly.
If
They're
you
doing
don't
everything
if
they
you
can.
don't fight, you will die. So you might as well try to fight. And if you don't get that, you've never been in a situation, you probably never will, and you don't care about anybody who is in that situation.
But
You're
yeah,
a supporter of genocide. Get
it's
that through
just
your head.
it's just fucking gross to see. Well, yeah, Biden, with that statement, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone heard what I heard. Like, your hope is that it'll be, I mean, sooner rather than later. I mean, that statement saying we're okay with more children dying before this ends. And he conditions that statement immediately with Israel has a right to defend its security, which, as Carlos at the top of the show said that was their, justification for unconditional military aid to carry out shit like this. So it's all just a loop of justification for murder. We only have 2 more clips left. Pull up this next one because I feel like a lot of people saw this guy's media clip because he was on, and CNN and MSNBC are not covering this at all, but CNN International will cover briefly. Sometimes someone will get through the cracks on CNN International because no one watches that shit. And this guy did, and that was a huge clip on Twitter. I'm sure other social media sites, because he, like we're doing, called it what it is. It's settler colonialism. It's genocide. He talked about the history of it. Even challenged the reporter moderator that was talking to him. I think she questioned him do you support even violent protest against Israelis? And he's like, do you support my family being ethnically cleansed? It's like, yeah, but this guy's been removed from his home. The guy that was interviewed by CNN International. So we can play that. He's been, yeah. And the actors his account if you want to follow him too. This guy wasn't, this guy's a reporter that's in his house talking to freaking mainstream media organization, frankly.
Something also, unrelated side note. Look how fucking little these fucking IDF pussies are compared to him. If they didn't have those guns, he would have mopped the fuck out of them. And
Yeah, exactly. And he's a reporter.
If Israel didn't have all their weapons, I could take on at least half of the IDF by myself.
Yeah, and I sit home all day. So
exactly. I could mop half of the IDF by myself. If I had JK with me, we could solve
we
it.
could take them out.
They're really lucky they have all those guns.
So we have, and you put this one, and before we do that, obviously there's other news that has happened other than this that we're not going to get to cover today. So, we'll make sure to get on that in the next one. But obviously this required our immediate attention. Also, kind of a discussion too, like one of the big things around this is direct action around the world. People marching in protest in solidarity with the Palestinian cause. And that's beautiful to see. I'm sure we're going to see more of that. Also, just, other protests like against the Colombian oppression. Bobi Wine, we talked about him in
Yes.
Uganda, when he was detained by the General Museveni, who's literally supported by the U.S. We give billions of dollars to them too. That's flared up again, and they're detaining him and his wife, I believe, in their home. So yeah, well, all these things we'll get to talk about.
Yeah, and I guess I want to bring up this piece. Besides if you scroll up just like a tad bit, the really funny Russia state affiliated media tag, which it was one of the funniest additions to social media in these past couple of years, is anything that's not the United States, they have to slap a tag on whatever the fuck it is.
And now
And if
they
they
like
can't do that-
occasionally do a US one on like big massive figures, but like this like affiliated stuff, just like you never see that.
Yeah.
I've seen Russia affiliated on like podcasts.
Dude, I fucking Triple J, they do like the music covers, like their Australian radio. They don't even do politics really, but if you click on their YouTube page, it's Australian affiliated media. It's like the fuck, dude. But
And if they can't do that too, this is something we also didn't cover. Like they'll just ban you. They're fucking. We face banning, but there's fucking Palestinian accounts covering the genocide right now that are being banned on Twitter and Instagram. So
and these people are just doing so much like journalism work, and we literally couldn't even start the stream because of a fucking title.
yeah, I can't imagine what they're. I mean, they don't
Yeah.
have internet there, electricity in a lot of cases.
And so yeah, let's just pull up this tweet. It's from Redfish, and the caption reads: Palestinians make up 88% of the population in the West Bank, but only have 0.24% of the public land there. Israeli settlers make up 12% of the population, but have taken up 99.76% of the public land. This is what settler colonialism looks like. And if you click on the infograph, yeah, this is what it looks like. This is that, and to think pre just dropping off, just pre spawning Israel, pretty much, this entire thing was Palestine. It was Palestinians in Palestine, and over half a century, the red is all that's left of of Palestinian land. It has just all been consumed by Israel, and that is completely fucking unacceptable. It's disgusting, and we're watching it before our eyes. We're watching the extermination of an entire population of people who did nothing but exist somewhere. And yeah, it's hard to find words for that. It's insanity.
Yeah, and only mass resistance and continued support to them is gonna, and moves towards stuff like the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions to Israel. Removing the money we give them to kill the Palestinian people. And all that's the onus. That's what we got to fight for. But also, like, yeah, I think truly the one state solution is the solution. Like, the problem is apartheid, right? Like, Palestinians are treated as second class citizens and relegated to, open air prisons, and they have their traditional land stolen from them. They need to have their traditional lands repatriated. They need to be treated as citizens, just as Israelis should be. Everyone should be treated as world citizens. I think we all believe that. And yeah, I mean that's the path forward. But we can't even move towards that until we remove the boot of just pure, settler genocide that Israel's doing before we even consider, having a one-state solution where hey, maybe you give them, because Palestinians are not citizens, they don't have voting rights. A lot of them cannot leave Gaza. So, I mean, that's the situation that has to change, but we're, I think, a long way from that right now.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to find words for this shit. Like it's a it's a it's a it's a super tough subject. Like it's not. It's just it's hard to talk about, man. Like it's really heavy shit. But it needs to be talked about, and it will continue to be talked about by not only us, but so many other, incredible left institutions and powerful left voices. And, we won't stop until, until Palestinians have a right to the land that is theirs. And until everybody's every person is, is
Treated as
given
a person, man.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
they're not even, they're dehumanized. Like, you can't even, if you talk to people in Israel, they don't even call them Palestinians, they call them Arabs. Because
Yeah,
they're
it's
easier to just dehumanize in places. Well, Palestine's not even a place, they're Arabs. They should go to Arab, some Arab land that's not here. Because
and we
this is
can't
Israel.
even the United States State Department can't even call Palestine a
Yeah,
state.
yeah.
We just saw Ned Price dance around calling Palestine a state, because if he calls Palestine a state, then he admits that they have a right to self-defense.
Yeah.
But that's everything for tonight. We got through everything. We didn't take a break. We just
I mean, for me, I was just kind of learning as we go because I really haven't been looking into this like at all.
and that's like that, and that's like a bigger thing, is this is not talked about, like, really at all, and especially
Not
in the
in
United,
mainstream media.
not in
at
mainstream,
all.
and for people like Michael, not in a bad way at all, not in a bad way at all. Like I think you really represent like the average just dude. Like you're just the normal American. Like this is something really tricky to get into, because anytime this is talked about, it's always talked about as Hamas bad, Israel good. Whenever you do hear anything about this situation, because nobody talks about this at all, because of how contentious this issue is in mainstream media, when in reality it's a very simple power
Super
dynamic.
simple. It's all one side, and the other side's being. I mean, just like how how people, frankly, and they should paint the Holocaust as a simple thing. It is. It was one side dominating and oppressing another side. It's pretty simple. I don't. If you can, try to get involved in, protest or direct action right now. There's plenty of stuff. I know right outside the Israeli consulate in LA, there have been big protests. DC, New York.
In all of the Israeli consulates in big cities I've seen, in Chicago and New York,
Chicago, 10,000 people were out there. Yeah.
and it's just like how militant we were and still are with the Black Lives Matter movement. We have to be about what's going on now, because as we said at the top of the show with Jake and what he was saying, we can't let this fizzle out. We're at a moment where so many people have their eyes on the situation, and yeah, and just like what happened with George Floyd, we didn't let this fizzle out, and we can't with this situation. We have to be militant, and we have to continue to fight every single day, and let the world stage know that Palestine absolutely deserves the same basic human rights as Israel, as every other country on the planet. And that's it. Like that's that.
And they were there for us when Ferguson was happening, giving us advice. They were
And
there. George Floyd protests, Free Palestine was intertwined with the.
And they've been
movement.
there. And there's that famous George Floyd mural in Palestine.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You forget about that.
which
So,
is
like,
just like, yeah, like
we got to
they've
be
been,
there for them. We have to show the same force.
and we have so much more power and privilege here living in the United States. We have so much just raw power as Americans, and if we pressure and levy enough, we can really make a change, especially with this situation, and we need to because it's so dire.
And we have to believe too that we can, right? Because what else is there to do? That's how apartheid ended in South Africa, was concerted and organized pressure on the US government specifically and the South African government to treat South Africans as citizens.
Absolutely.
And
I
that's
think
what it's going to take here.
I think you said that perfectly.
Yeah, and I think even tomorrow, like, obviously I know people have their obligations as well, but I might in Oxnard try to organize something just because, I know we're a small city and we don't have like some giant Palestinian diaspora here, but like we were saying with the interconnectedness of it, like we have to be there for them. Our police protests, violence protests, and over the summer, and I know we had protests here for the peasants in Brazil that were being brutalized by the police forces. They might have even been out there in Oxnard for the Colombia police repression. So we have to be there for this. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. And
Yeah.
it's-
Just keep peeled on social media.
yeah, or even, I mean, I would even recommend like just whatever you can do right now. Like it's at a boiling point. And we have to let's keep heating it up because it looks like Israel's gonna keep fucking killing civilians. Anyone have any final thoughts before we wrap up 49.5?
There was
No, I think this was 49.5.
There's I can't remember who said it, but there's a framing of like these are all living issues. Like it's not just it happens one day, you talk about it, and then the next day happens and it's gone. It's like it's constantly changing, like every day, and especially in this situation where it doesn't seem like it's gonna stop soon, or if it is gonna stop soon, it's not gonna be a good consequences.
Yeah, I mean they're bombing as we're talking right now, so we don't know. They could have just killed 20 more children, and we have no idea.
And we won't know. We won't know a true number.
Right? Yeah, for a long time, if ever. Right?
Just like what's going on with what we did or what we were doing in the Middle East. Not to say it did.
Right.
What we're doing in the Middle East and how many innocent people have died and are dying, and yeah, so many lost and forgotten souls.
What do you guys say? Fuck Twitch for censoring us?
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting point in the trying to start the stream. And
Yeah,
Twitch
I don't
not
think we've
allowing
ever
us
been
to use
outright
our
censored like that. That
no,
was
yeah,
new.
they didn't allow us to use our title, and so we're gonna make sure to put the true title on our YouTube if YouTube doesn't censor it, but I'm gonna just spam it a couple of times in chat.
Oh, that's how. Yeah. Hello.
Make sure it's on the stream.
Nice.
Fuck Twitch for that. That was kind of nuts. But yeah, that was everything. We need nice V's, dude. You act like you haven't been you act like you haven't been on the computer for your whole life. But yeah, I'm not gonna do a bunch of bullshit. That was a show. Absolutely, we need solidarity with Palestine now until forever. And yeah, we need to we need to make change because we're seeing an entire race of people be taken away, and it must end. But if nobody else has anything to say, I guess we should just go get out of you guys' hair.
Yeah. I guess just. I mean, I know you're gonna echo your, workers of the world unite, which totally applies to this. But just, yeah, freedom to all, oppressed and dominated peoples,
Absolutely, and
home and abroad.
yeah, and as Jacan was saying, I say it in every show. I think I missed it once, but it's incredibly important that we have international solidarity with every single worker every single oppressed person, no matter where you are in the world. And there's, we're always fighting for you, and the fight will never be over until every last one of us is truly free, meaning economic freedom, meaning, our civil freedoms, everything. Without one, we have none, and that's the main point. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We're gonna get out of your hair now, and everybody have a good night,
Yeah.
and keep your eyes peeled. Thank you guys so much, and we're gonna get out of here. Bye bye.